right. Well, listen, lots going on, and voila, Sobeys buys Longos. So, were you surprised at that happening, and what are your thoughts on the deal?
Well, I suspect that you weren't surprised. I wasn't. I would say when I saw the news about this acquisition, I thought, well, if I had to pick a buyer for Longos, Empire would be it, because Empire is a responsible grocer. It recognizes that there are some issues across the supply chain that really uh, discriminate against independent grocers, and that's why I'm for the next episode. I'm really pleased to get an independent grocer uh, invited to our podcast because I'm concerned. I suspect that the Longos family had lengthy discussions about the future of their business before committing to this deal. When you see Walmart and Loblaws imposing outrageous fees to manufacturers, independent people tend to forget that independent grocers can't do that. They can't get more, and they're becoming less and less competitive. So I suspect that Longos really looked at the landscape and said, "No, so how do we stay afloat with our growth strategy?" Because Longos was absolutely very, very aggressive over the last little while. So
Right.
a lot of independent grocers are struggling right now because the larger ones are charging more fees. This week, we just learned that Walmart was investing $500 million in, well, they're closing 6 stores, but they're building a new distribution center. Well, some of that money is coming from suppliers. Independent grocers can't do that to remain competitive. And so I suspect that
Now the indies do have buying groups like UGI, Michael's UGI. So, and I think Longos is part of UGI as well, right?
used to.
Yeah.
After this deal, they won't, because of course they'll be using. But I would argue that Sobeys or Empire's buying power is much more significant than UGI's. UGI's is there to serve a collective of independent grocers, and they've done a great job since 1972. However, you can do so much with UGI, and I think there was that recognition. Even Mike Longo was on the board of UGI, so they did believe in
Right.
UGI. But at some point, something's got to give, and so that's
Mm.
for Longos. I think that's probably why they committed to the acquisition. On the other side, Empire, well, they're gaining market share in a very tough market. The GTA, the
Yeah.
Greater Toronto
Yeah.
Area, is obviously one of the toughest markets in the country. And also, there will be converting 70,000 grocery gateway customers, and they'll be bringing them over to Voila at Sobeys, I think, which will also
That'll be
help.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see what they do. Now, as I've said before, I'm a Longos shopper. They're close by, and they actually sponsored my kids' soccer team, so I have a little affiliation with them. And I know Anthony and Jenny Longo do a fantastic job, and
Oh, absolutely.
uh, uh, Joy Bernardo, one of their fantastic buyers, is a good friend of mine. And I shop them all the time, and their grocery gateway different service is very different than Voila. What I see in Voila is what I expect to happen in the short term, who knows the long term, is some of their private label product will appear, I suspect, in the Voila tab, just as Farm
Oh,
Boy
probably.
product does.
Yeah,
They
compliment
might.
will probably show up. The thing
Yeah.
about Sobeys, the priority is not necessarily about the private label. It's more about the experience, and of course, Longos is a premium grocer, and so
Yeah.
I don't think they'll play around with that. If it would have been Loblaws, for example, it would have been completely different. The President's Choice agenda would have driven the entire acquisition process, I think, or how they would actually mix together. With
Yeah.
Sobeys, I think they'll be similar to Farm Boy. I mean, Farm Boy was acquired by Sobeys in 2017, and most shoppers at Farm Boy probably didn't notice any
Wouldn't know.
difference. They wouldn't know,
Yep.
and I
Yep.
think that's probably going to happen with Longos. Yeah.
Yeah, the connection felt right, and even Michael, from Sobeys, from Empire, Michael Medline said, basically he almost parroted the same words when he was speaking to the public about Farm Boy of Longos. We're not going to mess it up. We're not going to mess with the formula. We're going to keep the formula as it is. And I'm sure the family, the Longos family, considered that in terms of, who knows, maybe it had multiple offers. Now when we look at the grocery landscape from coast to coast, on the West Coast, you've got Jim Patterson's group with Save On Foods, it's a fantastic grocer. You've got Federated Co-op in Saskatchewan, and you've got Calgary Co-op, which is actually one of the biggest food co-ops in North America. And we're
Yep.
fortunate / lucky, so to speak, and timing to have Ken Keeler, the CEO, as our next guest. That's been booked for months, but it's just some nice, we'll be able to chat with him about the landscape, certainly in Calgary. So, as we go coast to coast. So that means I don't think it swizzles the table in terms of the top five, right? So the top five grocers in this country would be, in no order, but maybe kind of an order, Loblaws, Empire, Costco,
Metro is
Metro.
number three with
Metro's number
18.
three.
I think at 18 billion. Yeah, and then after that, there's a bit of a war between Walmart and Costco, but all of
Right.
them, all five of them, are selling more than 80% of all retail food in Canada right now. That's a lot of power. And so I'm concerned about diversity because when you go to Longos and you are a customer at Longos, I'm sure you find products that you would never find elsewhere. And something you didn't know about me, Michael, is that once when I was in Guelph, I actually taught an MBA course, an intensive 1 week course at Longos, at their headquarters in Vaughan, because
Yeah.
they supported a case study. We did a live case study on Grocery Gateway, and they wanted us to teach the class at their facility. And so for a week, we spent a week there. It was the best week of my career at Guelph. It was such a fun thing. And Gus, Anthony's uncle, was always in the classroom
Yeah.
all week. And Anthony came in, the CFO came in, Liz Volk, the vice president of HR, came in because we had questions about certain things. Everything was confidential, of course, but it was such a great experience. And I got to learn a lot about the company, and the culture at Longos was amazing. So I'm a little bit sad to see Longos being sold, but at the same time, like I said, if I had to pick one buyer, it would have to be
Mm.
Empire. So I was happy that Sobeys was able to become the caretaker of that culture.
I'm a little more sanguine about the diversity than I think you may or may not be, because when you look at the history over the past 20 years, there was a milestone where Loblaws bought Fortino's, and really, generally admit they messed it up because they tried to it got subsumed in the Loblaws organization. And at the other end of the scale, you look at TNT, and similar to Farm Boy, so TNT is across Eastern and Western Canada, Chinese-focused ethnic grocer. You
Yeah.
wouldn't know it's owned by Loblaw. There's not a lot of
No.
there's not a lot of President's Choice. So I think the model is kind of set. And you've got everything from Freshco, Metro's got ethnic grocers. Like they seem to have learned the lesson
Oh
that
yeah. No.
keeping the secret sauce is the secret to the success.
Absolutely. So Loblaws did learn, and I mean, let's face it, Loblaws is very good at what it does,
Yeah.
and they've learned from their mistakes. Same with Empire. I mean, when you look at yesterday, I was actually comparing the stock price of Metro, Sobeys, and Loblaw over the last 5 years. They've all performed well. I mean, the grocery business, yes, it is an oligopoly, but these companies are well managed by talented people. And so,
Yeah.
and they are, you're right, Michael, they are learning from their mistakes. And they're at the beginning, I think about 10 years ago, there was this fascination of becoming someone else. Like Loblaw was fascinated by Walmart and wanted to become Walmart. Uh, with Amazon being a threat right now, I'm not sure I see that again. Like I see grocers trying to create their own identity, and they're starting to feel very comfortable with that
Yeah.
identity. All grocers in Canada are a little bit different, and I think they're comfortable with that, which is great.
Yeah, well, I'm happy to see the top three Canadian owned, Canadian operated. So, in the world of these things, and we should talk about Amazon in the grocery space, and then we'll kind of move on. Is they've opened up now. They've had their Amazon Go, which is more like a convenience store, but now they've opened up 3 or 4 full line grocery stores
Yeah.
in the U.S. And grocery's been evasively successful, so to speak. Of course, they own Whole Foods, which is at the one end of the market. But now you see Amazon more in the U.S. Of course, they've got 14 Whole Foods stores here in Canada. So something to keep an eye on. But really, everybody wants to be a grocer until they're a grocer. It's a
Yeah,
tough
I mean, for
business, right?
years now, we've heard rumors about a new player coming into the Canadian marketplace, but I think uh, the complexity of our market is underappreciated.
Yes.
Being a
Well,
grocer
Target
can't.
Target certainly appreciated it. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, it's a tough business, and so
Yeah.
there's only 38, 39 million people in one of the largest countries in the world. To make it happen is not easy. The one player that I think we should keep an eye on is Couche-Tard. I mean, Couche-Tard
Yeah.
looked
Yeah.
at Carrefour, of course, in Europe, and failed. I don't know if they've given up on that. They're looking at partnerships and doing some business with European-based grocers. But I wouldn't be surprised if Couche-Tard makes a move at some point in the grocery business in Canada.
Oh,
That's
that's it.
that's a
That's
player that
interesting.
I'm watching right now very
Mm.
closely. Yeah.
Well, they're such an interesting company, right? The big stake in Fire and Flower, retail cannabis, which allows them to go into the states with the retail cannabis play in convenience stores at some point. Very interesting. All right. Well,
Oh
listen,
yeah.
we wish everyone in the deal much success, continued success. We wish the best. I mean, I think for Longos employees, they now have, if they choose the executive level, they can start working in different formats and get experience in everything from discount to specialty. So I wish everyone the best, and we'll
And
keep a
since
close eye on
yesterday,
that.
I was asked, oh, are we going to see a bunch of layoffs at Longos now? Honestly, I don't think so. If you're an employee of Longos, you shouldn't start rewriting your resume anytime soon. I think you'll be fine, and I suspect that Empire will be very respectful towards the legacy of the Longo family for a very long time. Yeah,
Well, in fact, and I would say there's probably upside, neutral to upside, and the upside is get your resume ready, because now you've got a wide variety of formats that you may want to choose to explore as a buyer, right? Maybe you want to be a buyer in
that's
the
right.
discount category and round out your skills. So
That's true.
no,
That's true.
I think there's mostly upside. It's going to change, right? Things will change, but mostly I think neutral to better anyway. So again, we wish them much luck.